Have you ever noticed someone who simply doesn't exist on social media? In a world where people share everything from their morning coffee to their most personal milestones, these individuals choose to stay in the background. Not because they have something to hide, but because they've discovered something most people are still figuring out. Most of us assume these people are just antisocial or overly private, but behavioral research actually tells a completely different story. People who rarely, if ever, post online tend to score higher in emotional independence and self-awareness. It's not that they fear being seen, it's that they've grown skeptical of what being seen actually means anymore. Social media promised us genuine connection. What it gave us instead was performance anxiety wrapped in the illusion of community. Think about the last time you wanted to share something that truly mattered to you. You didn't just post it spontaneously. You thought about the angle, the caption, the timing, how people might respond. By the time you actually shared it, the experience had already been reshaped by the imagined audience in your head. It was no longer just your moment. It had become content.
People who avoid posting have caught on to this exchange. Every time you share something personal, you're essentially trading ownership for validation. Psychologists refer to this as psychological ownership, that deep internal sense that something belongs completely to you. The moment you make it public, that feeling starts to fade. Your happiness becomes a comment section. Your vulnerability becomes someone else's entertainment. Here's where it gets really interesting. Most people who resist social media didn't start out that way. They were once active, scrolling, posting, engaging, just like everyone else. Then something changed. Maybe they noticed how draining it was to constantly package their life for an audience. Maybe they caught themselves reaching for their phone in the middle of a meaningful moment instead of just living it. Or maybe they simply got tired of the performance, because that's exactly what it is. Every caption is a rehearsed line. Every photo is a curated scene. And the reward comes in the form of likes and comments that trigger dopamine in your brain, the same chemical tied to addictive behavior. Gradually, you start chasing that feeling. You begin evaluating experiences not by how they make you feel, but by how well they translate into a post.
People who've stepped away from that cycle have built what psychologists call a strong internal locus of control. Their self-worth isn't dependent on how many people double-tap their life. They don't need an audience to confirm that something was worth experiencing. But walking away isn't always a clean break. There's a specific psychological strain tied to social media that researchers call self-presentational pressure. It's that low-level awareness that you're always potentially being watched and evaluated, even during your quietest moments. For many people, that weight becomes too much to carry. They don't log off because they hate people. They log off because the cost of being digitally visible starts to outweigh the benefits. And here's the irony in all of this. The very platforms built to connect us can leave us feeling profoundly alone. When you stop posting, you start to see clearly who shows up for you without needing a status update to remind them you exist. You find out quickly which relationships were genuine and which ones were just built on scrolling past each other's highlight reels. People who don't post tend to build their lives around moments that were never meant for an audience. Conversations that don't get screenshotted, experiences that don't need to be documented to feel real. They've internalized something most of us are still learning, that not every meaningful moment needs a witness. Research backs this up. People who take extended breaks from social media consistently report improvements in emotional stability and overall life satisfaction. When you're not constantly seeing yourself reflected through the metrics of likes and followers, your sense of identity becomes more grounded, more yours. You stop trimming your life down to what's digestible for strangers and start living it fully with all its beautiful, unfiltered imperfection. None of this means they're against technology or disconnected from the world. It means they've made a conscious choice to prioritize authenticity over appearance. They've decided that certain parts of life don't need to pass through an algorithm to have value. Because the moment something goes public, it opens itself up to interpretation, judgment, and the endless, indifferent scroll. There's something quietly radical about that choice in today's world. While everyone else is competing for attention, these people are turning inward, reconnecting with their own thoughts, their own voice, their own experience of being alive. They're not invisible. They've simply chosen not to reduce themselves to a feed. What they understand at the core is both simple and powerful. Privacy is not the same as loneliness. Silence is not emptiness. And living without an audience doesn't make your life any less significant. Sometimes the most honest way to be present is quietly, completely, without needing the world to validate every moment. That's not isolation. That's freedom. If this hit home for you, leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts. And if you enjoy content that goes beneath the surface of how we actually think and behave, hit like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.